Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at an interesting take on an emergency engine out. Typically when we have engine out situations, we can line ourselves up at the end of that runway, hold the glide speed, and we're looking great. Today's engine out situation is a little different because not only are we in a situation where our engine is going to be out, but we also have the problem where we're going across the wind, as well as the fact that we're not lined up with any particular runway. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and unpause this inside the sim here. And I'm going to kill the engine. Okay, so first things first, like I said, ABC. We want to go ahead and get ourselves to the correct airspeed, which on a 172 is about 65, 66 knots. If we put a notch of flaps down, we're good to go. So we're going to hold the speed. Now remember, the wind today is going to be directly behind us. That means that whatever we choose to do here is going to be having that wind pushing us. So the runway I've chosen to use there is going to be that runway that we're basically perpendicular to. I believe that's going to be runway 15 or something along those lines. And again, we're just holding that speed. I'm not doing anything crazy here. I'm going to keep that as close to 65. Remember, I can always go down. I can't go back up. So what we're going to do differently here is we're going to bring in one notch of flaps, and we're going to start slowing the plane down. And then we're going to execute ourselves a crosswind downwind turn here. So one thing you got to watch out for is look at my airspeed. You see how fast it's dropping? So when you go to make this landing, remember that not only are you landing wrong to the wind, but you're also not going to have as much energy. So it's really critical to get the nose down. So we're just a couple inches off the ground here. This does not need to be the world's best landing. It just needs to get us on the ground nicely. Just like that. So you could see the key particulars there. First of all was making sure you get your glide speed immediately. Second thing was picking a place to land. And third was making sure that you don't get too slow at any point during that approach. One thing you probably noticed is when I did set down, I got rid of the flaps immediately in order to decrease my landing distance a little bit here. Keep in mind, we are now on the opposite direction runway that we would normally try to land on. In the real world, if you just take a quick peek around the airport itself, we had a couple different options, but we went for this one because we had the highest probability of success. So we'll go ahead and do that entire scenario again, but we're going to mix things up just a teeny tiny bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take off. By take off, I mean ground handling. Prepare to stall. Stall, 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 stall. Don't sink, don't sink. Pull up, pull up. Don't do that. That's bad for the airplane. Cool. All right, so we're going to do the same scenario, but things are going to be a little different this time because the wind is now going to be at a different angle to us. It's actually going to be coming more or less blocking against the side of us. So I'm going to go ahead and fly away from our target here. And it looks pretty good, pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and take that turn again like I had before. Again, flaps are out of the way. Everything's ready to go. Everybody's been briefed on this carry scenario here. I'm swinging around here like this. Now watch what happens differently compared to when we did it the first time. And engine's out. Okay, same procedure. I'm going to go ahead and stick my nose down. We're going to get as close as we can to 65. And there's 65. And pull back just a little bit more here. All right, what do you notice that's different about this one than it was in the other one? Do you notice the fact that it appears that we're traveling slower over the ground? You're completely 100% correct. The reason we're traveling slower against the ground is because the wind today is coming from that direction. So as a result, unfortunately, it is now pushing against us rather than pushing us. So now we have a new problem, and that's the fact that that runway seems like it's getting awfully far away. So one of the nice things we have at our disposal in this aircraft is the fact that we can pop down our flaps. Now the question is, do we land across the wind or do we land with the wind? Well, take a look at our speed right now. I've got about 80 knots and full flaps. As a matter of fact, if I go any faster, I'm actually going to potentially damage the flaps. So I'm going to go ahead and bring us back around onto tree 2 here. And the interesting thing here is I'll actually be landing more or less correct, which is sort of interesting given the scenario here. So we're going to go ahead and left wheel down first. And we're going to go ahead and settle left wheel to right wheel, and the plane is down on the ground once again. So you can see that not only was it critical that we picked our airspeed and picked our ground, it was also very critical that we kept all those things within it and made logical decisions. Now, if this happened in the real world, I've actually practiced this maneuver in the real world, you want to make sure whoever's flying with you busts out that engine out checklist. Because, what would be nice is if your engine was still working, you could go ahead and just crank it back up and keep flying. Maybe you forgot to change the tanks or something like that. So don't forget, not only do you need to fly the plane, but you also need to be considering things like, can I get the plane going again? So we're going to go ahead and take a look at one other quick scenario here. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a little bit more power. And I'm going to get myself up to a decent speed. By decent, it's 172 speeds here. It's not a bad plane. It's just not going to get you there anytime soon. All right, that's 55. Going up. Whee! Going up, going up, going up, going up. Come on, come on. Give me some altitude. Give me some of that mean altitude. There we go. Sweet. All right, engine out. Okay, same scenario. The only difference here is that last time we didn't have a lot of altitude to work with. We were basically had just taken off. Now we have plenty of altitude to work with, but we have an interesting geometrical problem to solve. The interesting geometrical problem, of course, is how do we get to the ground if you lined up with the runway we intend to land on? Now that is an interesting puzzle. And the good news is it really comes down to the airplane. It comes down to some basic things. So for me, that runway right there that my shadow is right about to cross, you can actually see that shadow right there, that is going to be where I would like to land. So as a pilot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set myself up at glide speed, and I'm going to circle that particular point of the ground. Now you're probably sitting here going, well, how much do I need to circle? Do I need to bank a lot? Do I need to bank a little? Like, what's my strategy going to be here? As a general rule, and again, this is very general, and it's flight sim general, not real world general, you're going to be fine as long as you maintain your constant glide speed, even if you're at a slight angle, because if you're not at the right angle, you can always nose over and pick up a little bit of energy here. So I'm at about 70 knots. So let's figure out exactly how much altitude I'm losing here. Pause for just a second, give myself a little bit of altitude. Alrighty then. Get myself back down to 67. Come on, nose. All right, 65. There we go. Okay, so let's see. I'm facing roughly, let's call 30 degrees. Let's see how much altitude I lose. Again, try to keep it a pretty calm turn here. So I'm down 100 feet. Again, just I'll let it come. Whoop, we've got to watch that glide speed. The glide speed is for us. There's, oh boy, about 300 feet so far. Again, just keep that speed right on the glide speed. Know your airplane. If you're doing this in a Bonanza, this is going to be a little different than doing it on a 172, and I promise you it's going to happen a lot faster. So there is 900 feet. I'm sorry, 600 feet. Keep going here, keep going. And you can see we're about to hit our target. And we've lost 800 feet. Now, do you know the local altitude around here? It's about 500 feet, which means, if you were to quickly do some division, 25 divided by 8, that's going to be about 3, which means I can make 3 complete circles at 65 and still get down to the ground safely. Now, keep in mind that's going to be a very, very different scenario if you were in a situation where you have a higher performance plane or the winds were more extreme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep myself as close to that landing spot as possible. I know that as long as I have myself 800 feet, I can complete a circle. So again, this requires a lot of practice. So make sure you do try this because it's excellent. I'm going to go ahead and let that nose down. All right, so I've got about 1,200 feet underneath me right now, and I'm keeping myself as close to the end of that runway as I can, glued to that glide speed. Again, you don't want to go flying, going out to sea here, as I always like to say. There we go. We can reduce that rate of bank a little bit. It's sucking up a little bit of our energy. We can actually increase the rate of bank as we start to get across that wind. We don't want to spend any more time in this particular wind than we have to. You know, if you want to think about it another way, we're essentially doing a very aggressive turnaround of point here. All right, keep coming around. Keep it right around 65, and there's our runway. I'm going to go put the flaps all the way down. We're going to put that nose down, and we're going to land inside of the threshold as opposed to where we're supposed to land on the runway. But again, if this had been an actual emergency, we'd be fine. Now, did you notice that when we came out of that last spiral, we had about 200 feet below us? So knowing that how much the energy the airplane needs to complete one of those is what's going to be the difference between having a panic with this maneuver and being like, oh, just another routine training exercise. All right, we're going to go ahead and land left wheel first. There we go. Nice and roll. Pull that yoke back, and we're here. So hopefully this video encourages you to experiment a little bit with engine out scenarios around an airport. Like I say, when you first start, play with an easy plane like this or a 152. As you start feeling confident, try things like airliners. You know, try things like the Bonanzas or anything that has a turboprop that's a little bit more intense. But other than that, enjoy.